Hello, 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 everyone. Today I'll be talking with Matcharesident about program selection options for international medical students and graduates. I'm going to go ahead and find them so we can add them in the conversation. Welcome, Sneha. I see a few of you have joined. Let's see here. I'm going to invite Match. I'll be speaking with, there we go. Okay, there we go. Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Mayank, Bioprec. So you guys have pseudonyms on Instagram. If you don't mind, you can tell me your real name so I can address you appropriately. But I can also use your pseudonym. Hi, Nizeli, Roselle. Okay, Barbara. All right, awesome. So I sent the invitation for Matcharesident to join us, but today we're speaking about program selection for international medical students and graduates. So that's our topic for the day. Let's see if they got my invitation. Just make sure that accept. All right, there we go. Hi, Leah. Thanks for introducing yourself, Leah. Welcome, guys. Chidera. Oh, nice. I love it. Waving at Mandeep. Hi, Samriti. All right. All right. Let's see. Is Match here? Matcharesident is unable to join. Let's see. View request. Go live with them. All right. Sorry, guys. It's taking a minute. It's taking a minute. It's taking a minute. But I just accepted their request. There we go.
Hi. Sorry, it took me a second to get in.
Okay, I understand. It happens. Don't you worry. I'm just glad you're able to make it. So we have several people in the chat already. I already welcomed them. If you don't mind, just give us a small intro about who you are and where you're calling from and what you do at Match, and we'll go into asking some questions regarding program selection.
Great. So, hi everybody. My name is Amanda, and I'm the Director of Communications for Matcharesident. So I mostly help. I'm pretty active with the ambassadors, so we do a lot of like one-on-one talks with them, getting as much insight as we can into the process so that we understand each year as things change what is expected of us and the most that we can do to help IMGs. I'm also usually the one, if you call in, if you need to talk to us, I'll be the one answering your calls and your emails. It's Kyoko as well. She's very, very helpful. And we love the community, and we're so blessed to be able to help you guys in this way.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we got to chat with you today. I don't know if you told us your name. Did you tell the audience your name?
It's Amanda. It's Amanda. I did say it, but yeah. I talk too fast sometimes.
Yeah. So everyone, Amanda is here from Match. I'm Dr. Nina Loom from IMG Roadmap. And it's my honor today to host this conversation because I get this question in my DMs a lot. Usually more so towards the end of the year is applicants, international medical students, or physician graduates that reach out and they're like, hey, I'm not sure how to, strategize my application. Where do I find programs to apply into? How do I find them? How do I know that they're gonna like my application and such? And I often tell them I used Match back in the day when I did apply. However, there's so many different factors that they should look into. And I have some ideas that I want to talk about today. And then I would like for you to also tell us how, or what your opinions are, what you've seen over the years of working with this, with Match. So from my perspective with program selection, I think that there are certain key questions that the IMG needs to answer first. And that is, what specialty am I applying into? Until you're clear on the specialty of interest, guys, nothing else matters, because don't try to strategize your application based on, hey, maybe this is IMG friendly, so I'm going to go for it, or that and the other thing. You should have answered the question first on what your primary specialty is that you're applying into. And then if you're going to have a secondary specialty, that's up to you. It's not mandatory that you have a secondary specialty. It's not mandatory that you have a backup plan. However, some people would recommend, if your portfolio is not as competitive, your scores are not as great, to have a second option. Now, when you answer those two first questions, then you can proceed to the key of the next question, which is, what programs am I eligible for? And determining your eligibility can be a little bit, sort of intimidating. It's sort of embarrassing, because then you're strategizing and looking at things from your perspective and not necessarily carrying the perspective of the true reviewer of your application, the person that's going to be reviewing your application, the residency committee. So you may limit yourself when you start to answer the question of, am I eligible? However, I think that's where you stop in your tracks and you start to think about, how am I approaching this process? Am I limiting myself by thinking that I'm not automatically eligible for this program when I should indeed take the risk of trying? And so that second question of, now I figured out my first two specialties I'm applying into. My next tip is, okay, how do I determine my eligibility into this program? Now, determining eligibility can vary from looking at your score cutoff or the score cutoff for the program, the year of graduation that they put out, or the number of IMGs in the programs, and several different factors. And I think you guys have a great system in triaging sort of who goes where, or depending on what you carry in your portfolio. Visas being a big thing as well. It's like, do they require visa applicants, or do they sponsor visa applicants, or will I require an H-1B or a J-1? So all these questions should be answered. But I think another key area that students are omitting is thinking about, do I care for an urban program or a rural program? Do I care for a university program or a community-based program? Do I want a program that's going to position me for fellowship, or a program that's training me for primary care track? Do I want a program that I can bring my concerns to later on down the road? Like, if I'm in trouble, are they going to support me? If I'm in, any kind of dire circumstance, are they going to back me up? So I think those are the first key areas that I think everyone on this call should begin to think about now, as opposed to waiting till September, when it's time to apply, to start finding out or looking for a list. So the three things I'm telling you guys to do first is determine your specialty of interest, be clear on it, be certain about it so that you can start your research now. And then two, if you are going to pursue a secondary specialty, then you can, but you don't have to, because no one is forcing you to. Three, you need to be clear on the type of program that you are looking for, and which is, you have to have answered within yourself. Do I need a visa? Yes or no? If I don't need a visa, okay, that's not a problem, shift it aside. If I do, then that's something that must be checked up on my list. Do I have the score cutoff, my personal eligibility for this program? However, that's also questionable, because some programs have one thing on their website and it's not what's in real life, right? So you need to be cautious about that cutting yourself out or calling yourself short based on a program website is not always accurate. You'll be surprised how many programs have not updated the website in years, right?
So often.
Tell us
so
about
often.
that. Yeah.
So often. We get that all the time. We get so many people that email in and they're like, you said that we were going to be compatible with this program, but the website says something completely different. And it's like that, if you look on their website, sometimes they haven't even like updated the fact that it's step 2 CK now and like all this. Like, they don't even have pass fail sometimes on there. It doesn't get maintained as much as it should, unfortunately. So it is important that you're contacting the program director like directly, but it's really hard to do. I mean, they're so busy. How are you supposed to get in contact with every single program,
Yeah, and plus sometimes they don't respond, right? You send out an email, they don't respond, or the coordinator takes 2-3 months to respond. And so it's intimidating, it's challenging, but it's doable. I think that's the bottom line. It is 100% doable. So I have some questions popping up, and I want us to be able to address those as well. Prakriti, sorry, Prakriti says, how do we know about the score eligibilities? So usually, one, that's what we're talking about, is one, you can use the website to see what they say regarding what their cutoff is, but they may not always be accurate. You can also know about their eligibility based on using like a filter resource, like what Matcharesident does as well. So 2022 route. Oh, do you have another, Amanda? Do you have something else to add?
I was just going to say that's exactly what we would do with Matcharesident. You would put in the scores, and then it's going to show you what programs you're going to make that cutoff for, so that you don't have to do all that legwork. But you pretty much said that.
Yeah. So the 2022 route says, what do we do about the score eligibility for programs? So you can't turn around and like undo your score performance, right? Like, there's nothing that can be done about a score that you've already obtained. And this is an area that I happen to coach a lot of IMGs on, because we're so caught up in the imposter syndrome of failure and the sort of ruminating thoughts of not having succeeded at something in the way that we wanted to in the past. Mm-hmm. And now we're stuck with sort of this banner of failure over our head, negative, or a low score
thought pattern that I can't do this, I didn't do it the way I want to, now I can't do it anymore. But that's not the case ever. It's not the case.
So, there's nothing you can do about the score, but you can, however, improve other parts of your application.
Yeah.
You can, however, work on yourself as an applicant. You can improve your academic competitiveness in so many different ways, in so many different forms and fashion. USCE, research, all those are all things you hear everybody throw around. But there's a method to doing that as well. You just don't, walk out there and just start publishing every and anything. There's a strategy that you should uphold. So even if you have no influence over what programs are looking at as far as like score eligibility or cutoffs, it doesn't mean that you don't get a chance to attempt to apply, because there are several other programs that do not necessarily put out information regarding cutoffs. They don't necessarily put out information regarding eligibility. They would entertain applications or from anyone and then do their internal review and determine what they want to use to filter applicants out. So don't always limit yourself based on what you've seen on a website or what you've seen on some kind of platform or whatever the case may be.
I mean, it's true, because there are even times where people will say to us, I applied to this program that wasn't on my list and I got an interview. Now can I get access to that information? And it's like, yeah, I mean, of course. Like, we're not telling you. The whole point of our list is, and I saw somebody else ask this question, how do you know what the cutoff is then? So we call program directors every year and update our credentials so that we put in for each program what the score cutoff is, what visas they're accepting, what the year of graduation cutoff is, all those types of good stuff we'll get more into later. And then this way, if you don't have all the money to be applying to a lot of programs, because it is expensive, it's a really expensive process, this helps you kind of cut it down. But if you do have those resources where you do want to be applying to a lot of programs, you have some places you're really passionate about, then I would say go for it. I mean, no cutoff should ever really be like a hard thing, because I've seen applicants get matched into programs because they've had a really great interview, they had a really good personal statement, they had really strong letters of recommendation. These are all things that are also going to stand out even more probably sometimes than USMLE scores.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thought is, if the website is not necessarily saying that they don't have a cutoff, then they don't have a cutoff. Like, so sometimes the fact that the information is missing from the website could also relay that they're trying to steer clear of cutting people out because of a score.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't necessarily, you don't need to, call them and ask, do you have a cutoff for the USMLE, right? You don't necessarily need to do that. But the fact that that information is not out there means maybe they're not necessarily using that as a single determining factor of who they choose to interview, right? Because all of this conversation today is about helping you get more interviews so that you can improve your chances or your odds at a match.
And interviews with places you want to go to. There was one other thing I wanted to add, because I know you were saying about adding a second specialty. And I know a lot of people find it really useful, and this is something, though, that I've noticed with a lot of ambassadors. They give this advice to each other. Only go for that second specialty if you would be 100% happy to match into it. Do not put it on there as like, oh, I don't really like it, I'm not super passionate about it, but, it's a good last resort. Because then you're stuck in that. It's not like this is just a careless decision where you're just getting to go in it and do it only for a year. Like, this is going to be your path now. So just really think about what you're passionate about and what you want, and that's going to translate through your application to the programs that you are best going to match with.
I agree with that 100%, because this morning I was actually checking my email, and one of the students that I coached last year, he had done 2 specialties and got his backup specialty, and his response to me was, I'm so sad. I was so sad in the beginning because I got into my backup, but now I'm kind of getting out of that rut. And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, if you didn't apply into the backup, you wouldn't have gotten into it. And so to the same token, if you're going to do a backup, be sure that you're 100% content with that. And I'm one of those people that also matched into my second specialty, though I didn't really have a first. I applied into 2 specialties, and I got my second specialty. However, I have a career that I like now. And it's something that I grew over the years to love and have pivoted in several ways around it. So be sure, I agree with you 100%, be sure that that second specialty is something that you see yourself actually living in and doing. Otherwise, you're going to position yourself for great disappointment and dissatisfaction. And if you think that the dissatisfaction that you feel right now because you're yet to match is high, you have no idea what's coming for you when you're in a residency that you don't like and you're looking for a way out. I mean, I can tell you firsthand that that level of dissatisfaction is not worth it.
Yeah.
You're better off sitting out a whole year and getting to the specialty that you want by waiting than you are taking an option that you end up regretting, because there'll be so many days where you will doubt yourself, you will not like your career, and you find yourself, in many ways like myself, pivoting 6 years after you graduated residency back into a different fellowship or a different specialty.
Yeah.
So it's just not worth it.
It's not to say that if you end up going that route, it's not like it's a horrible thing. Obviously, if you're passionate about medicine and you want to be in the field, like you were still able to get that experience. But, you know, you might find that you have some regrets after the fact if this isn't exactly the thing that you're most passionate about pursuing. So I would say just really listen to yourself, listen to your gut, and like know that you're worth it. Don't worry about exactly what your USMLE scores or what all of that says. Like, it's up to you.
Yeah. We have another question. Is it worth trying to apply for surgical branches considering the green match rate for IMGs and tricks to get better chance for matching? So this person is basically asking, is it worth trying to apply into surgical specialties because it's competitive? So, you know, if you look at the match stats, there's always going to be an IMG that matches into general surgery. And actually, preliminary surgery was one of the higher specialties that IMGs matched into this year. However, that being said, so many times you can get a preliminary position, and a preliminary basically means the 1 year program. You get a 1 year contract. There's no guarantees that you would continue your residency after your preliminary year. You have to reapply into the match for the second cycle. So that being said, you can see that the trends for preliminary surgery are much higher this year. And that's also a route that I know several IMGs use to get into general surgery categorical, which is the direct 6-year track. So I would not defer my dream of becoming a surgeon because I'm an IMG. I wouldn't do that. However, I'll be realistic with myself, because if I failed step 1 and step 2 and step 3, and I don't have any kind of, you know, research experience, and I'm not really wanting to get any kind of experience, I'm not really forthcoming with my connections or building my connections within the specialty, I'm not showing commitment to the specialty in more ways than one, then maybe you shouldn't apply to general surgery, right? Because you're not going to get it. However, there are people that are willing to put in all the extra work, to put in that extra foot and get ahead with their decision to becoming a surgeon. Is it easy? No. Is it doable? Yes. So that would be my approach to that question. Any other recommendations from your part?
No, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, I think it's if you want to put the work in. I mean, it's definitely possible. People ask me all the time, what are my chances? What exactly can I do? I mean, there's no one size fits all. You know what I mean? You really have to go after it hard, use every single thing that you have in your arsenal, every single strength, and just really don't stop until you get that position. I mean, you're going to need a lot of letters of recommendation, probably strong USCE, you know, all these things, but it's not like that's impossible to get. It just means that you're going to be grinding a bit.
Right, absolutely. So how to look for new programs and pre-match programs. So what I did when I was applying, as far as looking for new programs, I basically went to Matcharesident.com and I put in my credentials. I put in what I was looking for, like my scores, my J1 visa requirement, and bought a list. That's what I did. And then from that list, I went down to filter through to see what my options were. And obviously, these days now, you can still do that by going to Matcharesident.com to do it. And I believe that you guys offer codes, even discount codes now. And mine is IMG Roadmap if you're interested in using that code. And you can buy a list on there and start your process there. That's where I started. You don't have to do what I did, but that's what I did. Is it considered to be USCE if I go to a private clinic or practice in the US, or only clinics related to universities? So US clinical experience can be done in a clinic setting or in a hospital setting. However, remember this, even universities have clinics, right? So you can still do your clinical experience in a clinic affiliated with the university, because doctors go to clinic and doctors go to hospital and doctors go to OR. So you don't necessarily disregard a clinic setting because it's a clinic. I think what your question is really is more so for private clinics, because maybe they don't have a university backing them up. And I would tell you that USCE, the quality of that experience also matters, even if it's in a private practice. So you can gain a lot from being in a private practice. You can also gain nothing from being in a private practice. I've also had people go to university centers for USCE and gain nothing from it because they weren't able to optimize that experience for themselves. Yeah. So in the superficial way of looking at it, yes, obviously when you have a university on your LOR, that can attract eyes to look at that statement. But if that statement comes off just as generic as everybody else's letter, yeah, then there's nothing more to it. So don't look at it just on the surface of university clinic, but look at it from content. Like, what am I gaining by being in either one of these places? You should be gaining something. Yeah. If you're not gaining something, you have no business being there.
Yeah, I agree. As long as you're, I mean, if you're getting that experience, ideally it's hands-on experience, and then ideally it's a strong letter of recommendation from somebody that you worked with hands-on day to day and could speak to the progress that you made while you're there. That's really the most important thing that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can you apply for electives without going through various agencies for an IMS? So I actually just waved to Sharonda, who is on the call, and she came and she DM'd me and came and worked with me for a month or a couple of weeks. I don't remember, a couple of years ago during the pandemic. So you can always reach out to physicians in person by yourself.
You can try contacting hospitals sometimes too, or just your connection. Sometimes you can always ask around, but yeah, it's not always easy to find.
Yeah, right. They're not easy to find, but that's the whole process. If it was easy, then we wouldn't be up here talking about it, right? Is medical scribe considered USCE? It is not. That's a job that you're doing on the side. However, I know, and I've interviewed on my podcast, I'm the IMG with my podcast, a physician who was working as a scribe and ended up getting residency after doing that scribe job. But, you know, people don't do that to get residency. You're doing it for the pay, right? So that you can furnish your application packet, or you can pay for your application cycle. However, there are certain ways that you can leverage those opportunities, especially because you're meeting physicians. You can use it as a method of building connection with people. So I think that's an underutilized part of the process.
Yes, how do prelim years? Sorry, I was just gonna say, I was just talking to somebody who works as a scribe as well and just matched, and she's like an older graduate and has kids and everything. She's so sweet, but I love it though. It's a good way. I mean, if you're looking for, you know, some extra money and you want to make some connections, it's a great way to do that.
Yeah. How do prelims years work? Are they specific to a specialty? Should I apply as these secondary specialty? So their preliminary years, you have mostly preliminary surgery. You can get preliminary OBGYN, you can get preliminary medicine, and you can get, there's also transitional, which is a mix of several different rotations that are not specific to one thing. So most people take preliminary surgery because they want to spend time in the OR because they're working towards a general surgery application. But if you're going for OB, you can find a preliminary OB position. Yeah. There are few preliminary peds positions, but they're there. And then there are a few preliminary internal medicine, which a lot of transitional programs are heavy on internal medicine, or they will be out of a internal medicine department. So it's being chaired by the Department of Internal Medicine. So you may get, like, in that 12 months of your first year of residency, you get a heavy internal medicine set of rotations. So you're in clinic, you're in hospital, you do radiology, you do emergency medicine. Now, contrary to preliminary surgery, where you may spend 6 months hopping around several different surgical specialties, and then you do some medicine, but you do mostly surgical rotations. You can apply as a secondary specialty if you are okay with being a preliminary and reapplying into the match the following year. So again, back to that initial point, you can use it, but be sure that you should be okay with ending up with a 1-year contract at the end of the process.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions, actually. It's hard to, like, what does it mean? Which one? What does it mean when they mention this program doesn't participate in the NRMP cycle? So
yeah, no, go ahead. Take it.
It just means that they're not participating in the main match. So you're going to need to contact that program directly, and you can apply to them directly. But I don't actually know. I mean, maybe you can shed some light on this. Why would a program choose not to participate in NRMP?
I think for several reasons. I think the key one is they are selective about who they accept, because one, maybe they have a specific curriculum that, you know, works for a certain demographic. So you have programs that are dedicated to rural medicine, for example, and they want people who want to be in that area, who want to live and work in that area after residency. The last thing they need is the kid from from the middle of New York City, coming down to take up that position and never giving back to that community after they finish residency. So they would much rather not have to deal with the randomness of the NRMP list and handpick who they take by not doing the NRMP and offering matches or pre-matches outside of the NRMP. So that's, I think, the key reason that programs would defer that process is why deal with the uncertainty of the match when you can pick the fit that the person is going to be a good fit for the program. And someone asked, when is a good time to start reaching out to programs? Now is always a good time. Is it true in internal medicine you don't require research? So that is a generalization that is incorrect, because you cannot put this statement on every internal medicine residency program.
There, you're back.
Of internal medicine not requiring research. And I think that's a generalization that is going to be a disservice to you, because you cannot take program A and weigh it against program B. If you go to, for example, Massachusetts General and you are applying into internal medicine there, and you look at, I don't know, St. Francis Hospital down in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, their requirements are going to be different, even though they're both accredited by the ACGME and they're both internal medicine programs that can produce internists. However, their requirements are going to differ. So that's a generalization that cannot be true for every single program. And I caution IMGs all the time to stay clear of generalizations like that, because all that does is it puts you in a bind and you're living with assumptions that are not true for your unique scenario.
I agree. I think I always tell people, they'll ask me, oh, do I need to do this? Do I need more of this? If you're asking me, do I need it? Like, what? You know what? If you can do it, you might as well try and get that extra experience, unless it's for some reason you really can't afford to take that time or whatever. But, I mean, I've had so many people ask me, why should I take this opportunity? I mean, yeah, I mean, if you have nothing else going on and you have the chance to add some more to your resume, you can add, your CV, add some more research on, some more volunteer, whatever it may be, I always would say to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. There's no reason to try to trick the system, to see if you can hack the system. Just do what is best for your career as an individual. I find IMGs trying so much to say, I'm going to check this box, I'm not going to check this box. Think about yourself. Yeah. You are the physician here. It's not it's not the program. It's not you. It's your life. It's your career. How do you want to be recognized? Do you want to be recognized as someone who has an understanding of research? Do you want to be recognized as someone who has published a paper? Or are you doing this because you want to check off a box, right? Are you doing this because you want to gain clinical experience in the US so that you facilitate your PGY 1 year? Are you doing it because you want to learn the specialty that you claim you're interested in? Or are you doing it because you want to check off a box to make yourself look better? Because your motive, your intention is so super important in this whole process.
And
otherwise, you're going to find yourself.
It'll be clear to the program director as well. When they ask you why you did it and you're passionate about it, it'll be obvious. So I get that all the time, exactly what you said, trying to hack it. People trying to figure out the little types of things they can do to just get by. I mean, you can try and do that, but you're probably going to end up regretting it because it's going to be noticeable on your application.
Right. I think we'll just take 2 more questions and then we'll call it a day. So Ms. Leah says, do you have any tips on getting into a specific state? Partner lives there. While I obviously don't want to lower my chances by applying only into that one state. I think that's a great question, because the fact that you have ties to that state is actually a good thing. And you should definitely leverage that, whether it's in your personal statement, whether it's in how you do your clinical experiences. But there's definitely opportunity there. So don't miss out on your geographic preferences section, because that's a tie. That's definitely something you can use to your advantage. And any final questions, Amanda, from your standpoint? Let's see, before we leave.
I was going to add really quickly to that too also, if you take part in the supplemental EARS application, tell those programs that are in that state that you're most interested in them. That's a really helpful tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, does that mean you can apply any time of the year for programs that don't participate in NRMP? No, because there's one cycle. There's one cycle for the academic year. It starts in June every year. So there's no like, you know, I'm just going to apply at any time. No, you have to, they still follow the same calendar cycle as well.
Mhm.
So that's always going to be an option. So guys, we're about to round up the conversation. It was my pleasure to co-host this live with Matcharesident today and Amanda from Matcharesident. And I would like to continue this conversation. I'm currently doing a webinar series actually for IMGs. I have another session tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can find that link on my website or on my page. We're right there at IMG Roadmap is the link in bio. You can check us out. I'll also put the link in the chat here. And we want to keep these conversations going. So if you have another suggestion for another thing that we should discuss and questions that we should take in the future, drop it right here, right now. Let's see what that is for you. We would love to do that. Maybe we could do this in, you know, another one next quarter and so on and so forth.
So many questions. Yeah. I'm totally optimistic, and I feel like there was more. I definitely want to talk more about, you know, how we can help everybody as well. So please feel free to reach out to us at Matcharesident if you have any questions about our services or just questions about the match process in general. We're more than happy to help you. I would totally do this again, though. So if you ever want to chat more about, you know, I feel like we could talk. I saw somebody asked about how many programs should you apply to safely? I think that's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I wish someone has, you know, I wish there was some like valid research, right, on what that cutoff would be for each program. There's research, though, for American medical students called the point of diminishing return that speaks about the average number for an American medical student beyond which adding one additional program doesn't result in an increase in your match potential, and that number was 30 for them. So, but that's for American grads. Now, for IMGs, we were not studied in that study. We weren't a part of the study. So I always tell IMGs, especially those in my coaching program, like you can't use that number. However, you can definitely look at your circumstances and say, what are my odds? So visa applicants, I always recommend going up. Non-visa applicants can go a little bit lower. Depending on how much you're bringing to the table and what your assets are when you apply, you can go higher, always higher, never lower, unless you're really super specific about what you know.
Unless you're really picky and you're like, I know I only want to go to these few places. But yeah, definitely. That's a great question. But no, I thank you so much for having me today. It was so fun. Sorry, I was like, my dog was like going all around at one point. I thought she was about to take off on me. But
oh goodness, those little pets, don't we love them? Don't we love them?
We love them, but she's crazy. She's crazy.
Yeah, so I'm just going to take this last question from Medical Goals about unfilled positions. So they wanted to know. So I have on my page on IMG Roadmap, I posted 2 days ago how to find unfilled positions. So go there. I have a list of like 5 or 6 websites that you can use to find unfilled positions. To make yourself competent for research if you're a novice, definitely that's a great question, something that I also teach within my program. But guys, we have to go now. It's our pleasure to have you. It was a pleasure to have a conversation with you. We're definitely going to do this again next quarter, and I'll hit you up.
Awesome. Thank you, Nina. I'm looking forward to it, and I hope everybody has an amazing day. Thank you for chatting with us.
All right. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Have a good one. See you, Nina.